Good evening. This is a special edition from Orlando, Florida. Today, Orlando became the tragic scene of the worst mass shooting in American history.
But when it was done, 50 dead, 53 injured on the scene in Orlando, Florida. Right now, it's a little after 11 o'clock here on the East Coast. We've been covering this deadly shooting, the worst mass shooting in American history.
The shooting occurred before dawn at a gay nightclub called Pulse. A lone gunman, 29-year-old Omar Mateen, made his way into the crowded club and opened fire.
So when Omar Mateen entered Pulse nightclub, a gay nightclub in Orlando, Florida, in the early hours of June 12th and killed 49 people like me, for no other reason than hate, self-hate. My heart broke beyond measure. And the community of Pulse nightclub, and the larger Orlando community, and the larger LGBTQ community became my community and my neighbors unlike ever before.
Earlier this week, I listened to the remarks of two Baptist ministers who responded to the Orlando massacre. One was in California, the other somewhere out west, I think perhaps Colorado. Regretfully, I didn't see anything or hear anything of the Spirit of Jesus in either of them. I don't think they orchestrated their message, but their message was the same, that they were pleased with what happened in Orlando, and their only regret is that more people from the LGBT community weren't taken from us. And they cited the Old Testament law as justification for their approval. I was mortified.
So I love you guys, and that's why I'm out here to warn you. Jesus said, those I love, I rebuke them, I correct them. And so, out of love, I want to tell you, turn away from being gay and trust in Jesus Christ.
So like I said, I've always been in the church. It's always been a support network. It's always been a source of strength for me growing up. Here in Raleigh, when I first came out, I had a list of about 20 people who I felt close enough to say, hey, I'm trans, I need you to pray for me as I go through this year. Today, only one of those people on that list has been affirming. But at the insistence of my friends, I did go to the elders about 3 months ago. So it was me in a room of elderly men sharing my story and just talking about what it's been like to be trans and what it's like to deal with the shame and the dysphoria. And at the time, you know, I was starting to embrace my feminine side even more. I was part-time living outside as Cora, you know, and they said that they would prefer me to endure, in their words, endure all that shame and suffering and guilt.
So at the end of that first year, my parents called me in to talk to me and asked if I liked college, and I said I loved it and I was having a great time, and they raised questions about my friends and who I was hanging out with, and they said that they had heard that I was hanging out with gay people, and that if I wanted to go back, I needed to find some different friends. And it was at that point that I realized that I would need to kind of go underground, because I knew that my path out of Shelby was to get my education. was to finish.
But you have to, I mean, Nancy had to lobby to go to college.
Yeah.
Like she had to make an argument to be able to go. It wasn't a given.
Yeah, I was the
So
first one in my family.
They
to
may
go.
not have said we won't pay for it, but
Right.
the assumption was you wouldn't be able to go to college.
Right, correct. So anyway, I knew that I had to figure this out and get through the next 3 years. So I just immersed myself in, taking a crazy number of class hours, 18 hours, and became the student body president, was in the officer in the BSU, just doing everything I could to occupy my time. And I just went into that hiding place that gay people have to go into when you know survival is on the line.
In 1999, I did another Holy Union here in Chapel Hill for 2 men. I told the bishop in advance. He told me, I was going to be, in trouble. And I said, I know, but this is what as a pastor, this is what I'm called to do. So I conduct the wedding in April of 1999. I'm put on trial again in November of 99. I'm found guilty and my credentials are taken from me. So since November of 1999, I have not been an ordained minister in the United Methodist Church.
Sync clap for the interview. Here we go.
Well, now that I'm deaf.
Say what?
Do you consider LGBT people gay sinners? You. Personally?
Personally?
Yeah.
Not because they're LGBTQ, but because they're human. Human beings are sinners. Sin is about selfishness. It is about making me the center of the world and everybody else on the periphery. And that is the root and source of all sin. We're all sinners. So LGBTQ folk are as much sinners as straight folk. I mean, that's not anything new. But they're not sinners because they're LGBTQ. I'm not sinless because I'm straight. So I don't preach that. In fact, I don't even think about it. That LGBTQ people are any more sinners than anybody else. So, and our church doesn't preach that. Even those who disagree with us in the church, you don't hear that in the physical church.
What the Quran says about homosexuality is that it is an abomination. The Quran basically gives the story of what happened with the people of Lot, and that they were, and it basically speaking about men, and believe that and use an analogy, it would mean women as well. But in this particular case, it was talking about men, that men wanted to do things with men that men and women did. And so because of this, it says that God destroyed them.
I don't think I'm comfortable being part of the Muslim community anymore. It's hard for me to be part of an institutionalized religion that has issues with women's rights and gay rights and racism.
People just say what the book says or what they think the book says, and they may know what it means or they may not know what it means. But the reality is this, that individuals may feel a certain way, and oftentimes people won't speak from their heart, or they'll just hold it within and won't say a word because they're afraid of what others might say. Well, I don't have that fear, so I can say what I said and stand on that. Because again, I'm talking about real, live human beings. I said to you that I've worked with gay people. And there was not a problem. I didn't, shun them. We worked together.
So maybe the moral is everybody should work with people of different faiths and different backgrounds and different identities and get to know each other as people.
And then the other stuff just starts going away. Again, like I said, if this is in fact something that God deals with, if that's what you believe, what are you dealing with it for? What are you dealing with it for? If you say this is what God did, then you don't have no right to deal with it. Leave it alone, right?
Thank you.
Well, I thank you. I thank you because, as I said, it's going to be challenging for me to be able to speak my mind and speak my heart, something that I have never done before in terms of being open like this. I've felt certain ways. I may have said something to my wife, but not open like this.
So, when I first realized I was gay, I fought it like anything because I had made a commitment to my husband and felt like I had said in front of God and everybody that I would be devoted to him. And because I was raised Southern Baptist and believed everything in the Bible literally, I felt like I was an abomination. So I really hated that part of me. I hated it. One day while visiting my mom, she said something about, did I think I'd ever get married again? Because by this time I was divorced. And I said, no, Mom, I'm not getting married again. She wanted to know why I was so sure. And so I told her, I'm sure because I am gay. I don't even think I used the word lesbian. It seemed too lesbianish. So that gay word is always a little softer. So I told her I was gay. And that's how I came out to her. And then didn't really have to come out to my sister. My mom told my sister, so it was not a good day. She did not take it well. I received a letter in the mail a couple days later that was actually from my sister, and she told me in that letter that she loved God more than me, and therefore she needed to not be around me. And she was really speaking in that letter for herself and my mom, saying we cannot condone your lifestyle. And my mom called a couple of times and I asked her if I could come over or see her, and she said no. And she told me that it was really no different than me being somebody like Hitler. That in her mind it was that wrong, which is exactly why I tried to kill myself, because when I first thought the same thing, I thought the same thing. It was the worst thing in the world you could be. I didn't see my mom for 20 years. And by then I had my son Kevin, so she hadn't seen him since he was like maybe a year or two old, maybe 3. But 20 years went by. She would maybe send me a birthday card, but she wouldn't sign it. Nothing.
It was a point of contention by that time with Dad. He didn't want to have anything to do with me, wasn't going to talk to me, nothing. I mean, it completely cut me off. And again, I was anticipating this being difficult. I was not expecting that my dad was not going to talk to me and that I was not going to be able to go home for Christmas or Thanksgiving or anything. It's just wrong. I don't care what Christianity or any religion says about sin, or that's wrong. People shouldn't be treated that way. I was being treated the way that I'd heard people were treated, and until it happens to you can't possibly know how painful it is.
If a parent came to me and said, I love God more than I love my child, and I cannot accept my child being gay, or I would say, let's talk about this love for God. This love, the God who said, how can you say you love me and not love those around you? Let's talk about this child that up until that point you loved them with everything that's a part of you. Let's go talk to some people who've had that same experience. As a Christian, be very careful in whom you say you cannot love, when your faith, your theology is rooted in love, the love of God unconditionally.
Looking at the Bible in that sense of trying to pick and choose and proof text and say, well, this is clearly what it says, when do you even know what they were talking about in those Leviticus passages? I mean, there wasn't even a word for homosexuality in that thought then. And so, you know, what they were talking about was abuse of power, men raping men. Yeah, that's wrong.
I remember at one point where we've had several students who have been open about their orientation and been well accepted. And I remember at one point talking to one of our juniors, seniors in high school who said, well, I just don't accept that. I don't think that that's right, Rabbi. And I said, well, you have the right to your opinion. However, if you're going to be an assistant teacher here or sitting in our office, as she was at that point, volunteering, you can't share that with others in a public way here, because that's not the culture that we want to cultivate. And so I'm pretty clear about it from the top down, and it comes from the culture up as well. But if we see an indication where people are not in that place, we're open to talking about it, but not open to letting them influence others in that way.
I had one particular experience back in my first years here when I gave some sermons about how we were going to honor the LGBT community and include, etc. I had one particular congregant who came to me, one I remember clearly, who basically sat on my couch and said things, how can you, Rabbi, you're a rabbi of the Torah, you teach, our children, and you're going to accept people who are identified, according to Leviticus, as doing an abomination, a toeva, I practice it as toeva. You are going to accept, these are people who, he said, disgust me. They are. And, I listened. I tried to listen with an open heart. I heard what he said. But ultimately, in those cases, I said to him, look, I've searched my heart on this issue, on numerous issues, and I'm going towards God's love and inclusion and compassion and welcoming every one of God's creatures in every orientation and stripe. If you can't accept that, if this is not a place that, if you can't come to a place where you can live with that, if you feel afraid that your children will be exposed to that, then you need to find another place to go.
Everyone is welcome. Everyone is welcome.